The card reader flashed red while rain rattled sideways beneath the freight terminal canopy. The cashier turned the screen toward me. Declined. That's impossible. I wiped rainwater off the company card and inserted it again. Behind us, a forklift beeped around 24 blue steel crates, each one holding enough white porcelain to set 3 restaurants. The replacement shipment had been sitting at the Aveiro dock since dawn, waiting for my inspection and my numbered seals. My phone buzzed. Owen's name appeared over a single sentence. "Your travel card is canceled." Before I could call him, the black hired car waiting by the curb pulled into traffic. Its taillights dissolved in the rain. I stood beside the terminal with a suitcase, an inspection case, and the brass seal pliers Bell Rowe had issued my father in 1998. The shipment couldn't legally move without my signature. Owen knew I was in Portugal to release it. What I couldn't tell was whether he had forgotten what my authority meant or whether he was counting on me to use it anyway. The cashier was still holding the card reader between us. "Would you like to try another card?" "Yes." I opened my wallet. "Let's find out what kind of week I'm having." My personal Visa worked. The amount was only 19 euros and change. A coffee, a ham sandwich sealed in cloudy plastic, and a package of almond cookies I had picked up for my Aunt Celia. The cashier slid everything into a paper bag as if she were packing medical supplies. Outside the glass wall, the driver who had abandoned me was gone. So was Thomas Vale, the Supplier's production manager. He had returned to the plant an hour earlier to retrieve the missing cooling records. He thought I had a car. I called the transport company first. The dispatcher recognized my reservation number. Canceled by the booking party at 16:22. Did they give a reason? Change in traveler requirements. That sounds important. It is what is written. Can you send another car? There was a pause filled with keyboard taps. We need a new payment authorization. Use the card you have. That card was declined. Of course it was. I thanked her, because she hadn't done anything except read Owen's decision back to me in a Portuguese accent, and called him. He answered on the 5th ring. I could hear a chair squeak and the low murmur of other voices. "Mara, my card is canceled." "Yes." "And the car." "Yes." His calm irritated me more than shouting would have. "I'm at the terminal." "I know where you are." A dock worker in an orange rain suit rolled one of the crates beneath the canopy. Blue paint had been scraped from a corner, revealing bare steel. On its side, a document sleeve held the packing list I had reviewed that morning. Crates 1 through 24, 1,680 place settings. Caldera Hospitality's first openings were printed in bold beneath the destination code. "Why did you cancel my travel arrangements?" I asked. "Because I instructed you to return yesterday." "You asked if I could return yesterday. I told you the inspection wasn't finished." "I told you the company would handle the release remotely." "You can't handle it remotely. We can handle a shipment of plates without keeping a director in Portugal at $400 a night. My hotel is 170 euros. Then you should be especially eager to leave." I looked at the terminal roof. Rainwater spilled from a broken gutter and slapped the concrete hard enough to splash my shoes. The voices on his end went quiet. He had put me on speaker. I lowered my own voice. "Who's in the room?" "That isn't relevant." "It becomes relevant when you perform." A breath touched the microphone. Owen had always done that before saying something he wanted repeated later. "You declined a direct instruction from the chief financial officer. I withdrew authorization for further expenses. If you choose to remain, you're doing so personally." The terminal doors opened behind me, releasing a warm gust that smelled of coffee, wet cardboard, and diesel. "Did you read the hold release agreement?" I asked. "I read every agreement finance approves." "That isn't what I asked. The laboratory results are acceptable. We have preliminary migration results. Thomas still owes me the complete cooling logs and the thermal shock sheet. The supplier confirmed the lot passed. The supplier also confirmed the last lot passed. Caldera found cracks after 2 wash cycles. A man on Owen's side of the call cleared his throat. I recognized the small, careful sound. Gerald Dunn, our controller, was there. Owen said, "This is exactly the problem, Mara. Every answer from you creates another condition. We have a container booked. We have a client deadline. We have product sitting on a dock because you're turning a routine inspection into a personal crusade." One of the dock workers glanced my way. English carried well under the metal canopy. I shifted closer to the rain. "Then tell Gerald to open the signed protocol and read Section 4. Don't drag my staff into this. Gerald has been with Bell Rowe for 11 years. I think he can survive a PDF." The silence changed. Owen was reading something or telling someone else not to. I pictured him in the smaller conference room beside finance, the one Celia had decorated with framed advertisements from our early years. In my favorite, a waiter held a stack of plates above his head like a circus performer. My father's elbow appeared at the edge of the photograph because the marketing team had forgotten to crop him out. Owen said, "Send Priya your inspection notes. She has them. Then your work there is complete. My work is complete when the cargo is released or rejected. We'll discuss your interpretation when you're back. It's Caldera's interpretation and the Supplier's insurers. My name is on the release authority." Another pause. This one was small, but I felt it. Owen said, "There are always alternate signatories. The independent lab can take over. Their full retest takes 3 business days. We don't have 3 days. I know. You're the one creating the delay. Restore the car and let me finish. I'm not negotiating over an expense card. You canceled the tool I need to do the job you sent me to do. A company card is not a tool. It's a privilege." There it was. The line meant for Gerald, for whoever else was sitting quietly in that room, and eventually for Celia. I stared through the rain at the blue crates. My father used to say you could learn a company by watching which objects people called tools and which ones they called expenses. He had usually said it while buying something Celia thought we could live without. "Put that in writing," I said. I just did. His message said only that my card was canceled. He knew the difference. "When is my flight?" I asked. "Your existing ticket departs at 9:30 tonight." It was nearly 5. The airport was more than an hour away in good traffic. My suitcase wheels were built for hotel carpet, not a wet industrial port. "And how do you propose I get there?" "You're an experienced traveler." Gerald made the throat sound again. I ended the call. For a few seconds, my reflection hovered in the black phone screen. Wet hair flattened against my cheeks, terminal lights turning the gray in it silver. I looked like a person who had been informed of something everyone else already knew. The shipping coordinator came through the security doors carrying a clipboard. His name was Luis. He had spent the morning apologizing for weather he did not control. "Ms. Bell, we close the inspection bay at 1800. "I understand." "Will you apply seals today?" "Not without the records." He pressed his lips together and nodded toward the crates. "If no release, container misses tonight's gate." "When's the next booking?" "Tomorrow evening, if the carrier accepts the change. After that, Monday." Caldera's first restaurant opened the following Thursday. Its training kitchens needed the porcelain by Tuesday. 1 missed sailing could be absorbed. 2 would turn every delay into air freight, split deliveries, and a week of chefs plating menu samples on whatever dishes the local managers could borrow. My phone showed 4% battery. "Can I charge this inside?" Luis pointed toward the terminal cafe. "Near the vending machine. The outlet is loose. Hold the plug upward." That was how the next 40 minutes passed, me holding a charger at an angle with my shoe while eating half a cold sandwich and watching rain turn the windows opaque. I opened the hold release agreement on my laptop. I had read it enough times to know the language, but anger made memory feel unreliable. Section 4 was still there. Following confirmation of corrective production, physical release shall be authorized by Mara Bell, Director of Supplier Quality, upon review of specified records and application of numbered seals. In the event Ms. Bell is unavailable, release may be authorized after independent verification by Laboratorio Costa, according to Appendix C unavailable. Owen had stranded me beside the cargo and would soon describe me as unavailable. I plugged my inspection case into the wall to charge the small ultraviolet lamp we use to spot glaze repairs. The brass seal pliers lay inside their foam cutout beside a canvas pouch of aluminum seals. My father's initials, HB, had been scratched beneath one handle. Mine were nowhere on them, though I had carried them longer than he had. At 5:26, Thomas called. "I have the cooling logs," he said. "There are some irregularities." "How irregular?" "The furnace record is complete for 18 crates." I looked through the window at the dock. "And the other 6? The product passed visual inspection." "That wasn't my question. They were packed from an earlier unloading." "How much earlier?" "I am checking." "Tomas." His breath whistled over the phone. Thomas was 50, broad-shouldered, and capable of walking an entire factory floor with a white coffee cup balanced on 2 fingers. In 14 years, I had seen him frightened twice. The first time was during a kiln fire. The second was when his company's owner learned that a restaurant chain had photographed cracked plates with the Supplier's stamp visible on the bottom. "I received an instruction," he said. "From whom?" "You should speak with your office. Who instructed you to load the 6 crates?" He switched briefly into Portuguese, speaking to someone near him, then came back. "I will bring the documents. Tomas, the bay closes in half an hour. I need 40 minutes. Email them." I prefer to explain. That was rarely good news. A shadow fell across my table. Luis stood beside me with his clipboard tucked under one arm. "We must decide," he said. "Seal and load or hold." On my laptop, a new message arrived from Priya. "Owen wants me to issue the release in Q-Track. He says you approved the lot verbally. Did you?" Priya was 32, frighteningly good with numbers, and still apologized before correcting anyone over 50. 2 years earlier, she had transposed a glaze formula code in a report that went to Caldera. I had caught it before production, fixed the report, and told her privately that shame was a poor filing system. Since then, she checked every formula twice. I typed back, "I have not approved this lot verbally or in writing. Do not release it. Please preserve Owen's request and send me a copy of the system activity." The typing indicator appeared, vanished, and returned. He's standing behind me. I closed my eyes. Luis waited. "Hold the cargo," I said. He marked the clipboard. "All 24 crates?" "All 24. "You understand it stays docked tonight?" "Yes." He gave me the pen. "Sign here." My signature looked steady. That annoyed me too. At 6, the bay lights shut off in pairs. The blue crates remained beneath the canopy, their document sleeves fluttering in the wind. I packed the pliers, seals, laptop, and dead phone into my inspection case, then dragged my suitcase toward the security desk. The guard called a taxi from his own phone. The nearest available driver was 35 minutes away. I found a hotel that would take a same-day booking and put the room on my personal card. The available credit after the charge was less than the cost of changing my flight. While I waited, I borrowed the guard's charger and sent one email to Owen, Gerald, Priya, Thomas, Luis, and Caldera's quality director, Evelyn Cho. The required cooling records have not been produced for the complete lot. 6 crates require further review. My company transportation and payment access were canceled at 4:22 p.m. while I was at the Aveiro terminal. I remain available to complete the inspection upon restoration of transportation, lodging, and access to the required records. No release has been authorized. The shipment will remain at the dock tonight. I read it 3 times before sending. The taxi arrived at 6:47. As we pulled away, I could still see the crates through the terminal fence, 24 blue rectangles under white security lights. My phone rang before we reached the highway. It was Celia. She never called me from the office after 6 unless someone was bleeding or a customer had threatened to put our plates through an industrial shredder on camera. I answered. "Mara," she said, "what did you do?" I held the phone away from my ear for a second, long enough to wonder whether the taxi driver understood English. "What did I do?" I said. "Owen says you refused to release the shipment and walked away from the terminal." I left when they closed the inspection bay. Did you refuse? I put the cargo on hold because 6 crates don't have complete cooling records. Celia exhaled through her nose. I could picture her pinching the bridge of it, smudging the powder she still wore even after most women her age had stopped bothering at the office. She kept a compact in the top drawer of her desk beside a tire pressure gauge and 3 restaurant matchbooks. Are the other 18 acceptable? Based on the records I have, probably. Then release those. The agreement covers the lot. Agreements can be amended. By Caldera, the supplier, and the insurer at 7 o'clock on a Friday. The taxi swung around a delivery van. Water hissed under the tires. Mara, we have 32 openings attached to this order. I'm aware. Then help me understand why my shipment is sitting in Portugal. The word "my" landed exactly where she intended. Because Owen ordered me home before the inspection was complete. When I stayed to finish it, he canceled my card and transportation. He says you were told that finance would handle the release. Finance can't handle the release. You know what I mean. I honestly don't. The driver glanced into the mirror, then concentrated very hard on the road. Celia's voice softened. That was usually more dangerous than when it sharpened. I need both of you to stop staking out territory. Owen has the lenders in next week. He's trying to close the Armitage acquisition. You have Caldera's launch. Everybody is stretched. I'm in a taxi. I had to put on my own card because your CFO stranded me at a freight terminal. You're saying that like he took your passport. Would that make it serious enough? Don't do that. Do what? Turn every ugly business decision into a character verdict. I watched warehouses slide past the wet window. Celia had taught me that sentence. When I was 29 and a supplier sent us a truckload of bowls with warped feet, I wanted to cancel every order we had with him. She made me sit down with his books and discover that his furnace loan had doubled. We changed his payment schedule, he fixed the kiln, and we worked together another 8 years. Celia believes circumstances explain people right up until someone else's circumstances inconvenienced her. I'm not asking you to decide what kind of man Owen is, I said. I'm asking you to restore what I need to work. I'll have Gerald arrange your hotel. And transportation. Yes. And my card. A pause. Celia, I'll speak to Owen. That's not the same thing. You want me to reverse the CFO in front of his department tonight? He canceled it in front of his department. You embarrassed him on speakerphone. He put me on speakerphone, so you knew people were listening. I laughed once. It came out dry and unpleasant. The taxi driver turned up the radio. Celia said, "Send me the records on the 6 crates. Thomas is bringing them. Review them tonight. Call me before you contact Caldera again. They're already copied on the hold notice." Yes, Mara, I saw. The disappointment in those 3 words struck harder than Owen's message had. Celia had always valued clean documentation. She had trained me to copy everyone who carried risk, especially when the truth might become inconvenient by morning. You wanted me to hide the hold from them? I wanted 10 minutes to understand it before our biggest client learned we had an internal dispute on a dock. They learned that the records are incomplete and I'm still available to finish. They learned your travel card was canceled. That happened. Not every fact belongs in every email. This one explains why their named inspector stopped working before the bay closed. The taxi took the hotel exit. A blue sign promised conference facilities, a heated pool, and international television. Celia went quiet. When she spoke again, her voice had lost its edge. Your father used to send emails when he was angry. My father threw a gravy boat at a wall during the Hensley account. It was already cracked. It was cracked after it hit the wall. That pulled a reluctant breath from her, almost a laugh. For 1 second, I could see us at her kitchen table, sorting sample cups while she complained about my father's inability to distinguish passion from property damage. Then she said, "Call me after you've seen the logs." I will. And Mara? Yes? Don't make any decision tonight that can't be taken back tomorrow. She ended the call before I could ask which one of us she meant. The hotel lobby smelled of lemon cleaner and old air conditioning. A wedding party had taken over the sofas. Women in bright dresses held their shoes in their hands, while a man in a narrow blue suit argued with the desk clerk about corkage. I checked in behind them, declined the breakfast upgrade, and carried my inspection case upstairs myself. The room overlooked a parking lot and the glowing sign of a furniture warehouse. I spread the contents of my case across the desk: laptop, ultraviolet lamp, moisture meter, loop, seal pouch, brass pliers. The aluminum seals clicked together like loose coins. My sandwich had softened into a damp triangle. I ate it over the trash can while calling the airline. The woman who answered confirmed that my ticket still existed. Changing it to Sunday would cost $642. My personal card had $411 available after the hotel and taxi. "Can you hold the seat?" I asked. "Payment is required to reissue." "What happens if I miss tonight's flight?" "The ticket may lose its remaining value." I looked at the seal pliers. "Of course it may." At 8:15, Thomas arrived carrying a cardboard archive box and 2 coffees. His hair was soaked, and his white shirt had turned translucent at the shoulders. "You should have brought an umbrella," I said. "You should have left when your company told you." He set 1 coffee beside my laptop. "You heard. People at ports hear everything." "Was that before or after you ignored my question?" He took off his glasses and cleaned them with the inside of his jacket. "I did not ignore it. I drove here." With a box. With a box. I opened the lid. Cooling charts filled 3 binders. The first 2 were labeled in the supplier's usual block handwriting. The third had a printed label that sat slightly crooked. 6 crate numbers were written across the top. Thomas remained standing. "Who told you to load them?" I asked. "Owen Bell." "Directly?" "Through a video meeting on Wednesday." "I was in the plant Wednesday." "You were in the laboratory." "How did he know there was a delay?" "I told our owner we might miss the booking." He called Mr. Bell. "And Owen told you what?" Tomas put on his glasses. He said the cooling period was an internal manufacturing preference. He asked whether visual inspection showed defects. I said it did not. He said to pack the pieces and produce the final records when available. "You can't produce cooling records after the pieces have cooled. You can complete the file." That's a graceful sentence. His mouth tightened. "We have 87 people at the plant. Missing the shipment affects the final payment. The final payment affects July payroll." There it was. Not cowardice, not exactly. Arithmetic wearing a wet shirt in a hotel room. I opened the 3rd binder. The charts showed kiln temperature through firing, then ended 43 minutes into controlled cooling. Our corrective protocol required 240 minutes, followed by sample immersion and thermal cycling. What happened after minute 43? The recorder stopped. Why? Power interruption in the data unit. Did the kiln lose power? No, backup power maintained the cycle. Then there should be a controller history. There is. Where? He looked toward the box. Under the binders sat a clear plastic folder. Inside were 6 controller printouts. The temperature curves were complete. 2 showed sudden drops during the cooling period. I lined them up by timestamp. How cold was the factory floor Wednesday morning? 14 degrees. And someone opened the kiln. Thomas removed his glasses again, though they were clean. The unloading team was told to accelerate. By you? By my production supervisor? On whose instruction? He rubbed a thumb against the hinge of his glasses. Mine. The rushed pieces could be fine. Porcelain survived worse. It could also carry invisible stress that became a crack after repeated commercial washing, the exact failure Caldera had already experienced. "Why tell me now?" I asked. "Because Mr. Bell wants the crates released." That doesn't answer me. He said if your authorization became a problem, your analyst would issue it. I leaned back. Thomas nodded toward the brass pliers. "But the crates require those seals." "The seals can be duplicated." "Not tonight." He had followed our routine for 14 years. Every approved crate received a numbered aluminum seal, and I photographed the crimp beside a cobalt blue test saucer from that crate. The saucers were ugly little things, too thick at the rim and too small for any restaurant table. Their glaze made stress lines easy to see under ultraviolet light. Our archive in New Jersey held shelves of them. "Where are the 6 test saucers?" I asked. "In the crates." "You packed the samples?" The team packed everything. "Were any photographs taken?" "No. The absence sat between us. Owen could generate a release in QTrack, but he couldn't create the physical record that went with it. I opened the full cooling logs and photographed each page. Then I took out a notebook and wrote the 6 crate numbers by hand. Thomas watched me. "What will you do?" "Inspect them tomorrow. And if they pass, I'll release them. And if they fail, I'll reject them." You make this sound simple. It's simple for me. It's expensive for everyone else. His shoulders lowered slightly. He had come prepared to defend his factory against a moral speech. A test procedure gave him somewhere firmer to stand. "I can arrange the thermal tank at 7, he said. "The terminal bay doesn't open until 8. I can have samples removed under supervision. Can Luis authorize that?" "Yes. Ask him in writing." Thomas picked up his phone. While he typed, a message from Gerald appeared on my laptop. "Hotel and local ground transportation approved through Monday. Finance will book directly. Corporate card status remains under review." Directly meant Owen could cancel each item separately. It was also enough to get me to the dock. Another message arrived from Priya. She had exported the QTrack activity log. Owen's request appeared at 5:31 p.m. Release full lot. Director approval received verbally. Priya's reply appeared at 5:38. "Please identify approving director for audit record." At 5:41, Owen had written, "Monsieur Bell." I read it twice. Thomas stopped typing. "Bad?" "Specific." I forwarded the activity log to my personal address and saved it with the cooling records. At 9:20, I watched my flight leave on the airline app. The tiny plane icon rolled down the runway in Porto and turned southwest over the Atlantic. My suitcase sat open on the luggage rack with tomorrow's clean shirt hanging from the bathroom door. I felt the departure as a physical thing, a door closing somewhere beyond reach. Celia called at 10. I told her about the 6 interrupted cooling cycles and Owen's instruction to pack them. "He says the factory assured him the product was sound," she said. "The factory's production manager is sitting 3 feet from me. He isn't assuring me now." Thomas looked up from his coffee. "Is he willing to put that in writing?" Celia asked. He brought the logs. "That's not what I asked. It's what matters for the inspection. Mara, listen to me. Separate the operational issue from the family issue. Owen already combined them. I am asking you to separate them. How? Inspect the 6 crates. If they pass, sign the release. We deal with his behavior internally. And his false entry in QTrack? What false entry? I sent her a screenshot. For almost a minute, the line stayed silent. Then Celia said, "Forward me the full export." "I will. Only me." "Gerald is responsible for financial controls." I said only me. I looked at Thomas, who had become fascinated by the hotel's room service menu. Why? Because I need to know whether I'm correcting an overreach or containing a crisis. A crisis for whom? For the company with our name on it. It has my name on it too. That is exactly why I'm asking you to give me until morning. The old reflex rose before I could stop it. Protect the kiln while it was hot. Argue after the order shipped. Let Celia stand between the company and the fire, because she had always known which burns would heal. "Until morning," I said. "Thank you." At 6:40 the next day, Gerald called and woke me. His voice was strained. "I need to know whether the cargo cleared." It didn't. Owen told Caldera it left the terminal last night. I sat up. The room was gray with early light. On the desk, the aluminum seals lay scattered beside the pliers. "When?" On a call after your email, he said Customs had delayed the departure scan. Customs never received it. I put it on quality hold. I know that now. Does Evelyn? She will soon. Caldera's freight team checks the port system at 7 Eastern. That was noon in Portugal. Owen had bought himself 5 hours by turning my hold into a customs delay. Gerald lowered his voice. He's drafting a notice that says you exceeded your authority. My authority is printed in the agreement. He says your expense privileges were withdrawn after you disobeyed a return instruction. He's treating the cargo as a separate matter. Of course he is. I'm sending you the draft. A knock sounded at my door. Thomas had arrived early holding the cobalt blue test saucers the terminal had released under supervision. One of them had a pale line running from the rim toward the center. Gerald was still speaking. Mara, Owen wants this documented before the client calls. I took the saucer from Thomas and tilted it toward the window. The line caught the morning light. Then he'd better type fast, I said. Thomas held the saucer by its edges while I switched off the desk lamp. Under the ultraviolet beam, the pale line brightened into a thin green vein. How many look like this? I asked. 2 obvious, 1 uncertain. From which crates? He placed 3 folded packing slips on the desk, crates 4, 11, and 19. All 6 rushed crates had been packed from the same unloading sequence, but those 3 came from the side of the kiln nearest the door. I photographed the first saucer beside its packing slip, then reached for the second. My phone buzzed with Owen's draft notice. Mara Bell was instructed to conclude her overseas travel after completion of scheduled supplier meetings. She independently remained in Portugal, exceeded approved spending parameters, and placed cargo on hold without executive authorization. I stopped reading. Is it good? Thomas asked. The saucer or the fiction? The saucer. No. I handed it back. Call Luis. We need the thermal tank. At the plant, the firing laboratory was already warm enough to fog my glasses. Stainless steel tanks lined one wall beneath yellow pipes. A technician named Beatriz had arranged 6 test saucers on a padded cart. She wore red-framed glasses and kept chewing the inside of her cheek. These were removed from the crates under terminal supervision? I asked. She pointed to Luis, who stood beside the door with his clipboard and an expression that suggested he had begun regretting every English word he knew. He showed me the removal form. All 6 crate numbers were listed, with the terminal timestamp and Tomas's signature. Thank you, I said. Luis shrugged. I prefer cargo that leaves. So do I. We immersed the samples in heated water, transferred them to the cold tank, and repeated the cycle. The first round showed nothing new. During the third, the saucer from crate 11 made a sound like a fingernail tapping glass. Beatrice lifted it with padded tongs. A crack ran through the glaze and into the body. Thomas closed his eyes. The saucer from crate 19 split during the 5th cycle. One half settled to the bottom of the tank with a quiet metallic click. I documented both failures. Beatrice signed the laboratory sheet. Tomas signed as witness. Luis signed the chain of custody form. My phone rang while I was photographing the broken halves. Evelyn Cho. I put her on speaker with everyone's permission and set the phone on the counter. Mara, I'm looking at the Port of Aveiro system, she said. Your container never entered the customs queue. That's correct. Owen told us it was awaiting a departure scan. The cargo is still under quality hold. Why? I gave her the short version. Incomplete cooling records, 6 crates unloaded early, 2 failed samples so far. Evelyn let me finish. She had a way of making silence feel like a conference room with the blinds closed. Can the 18 documented crates move separately? She asked. Not under the current agreement. The release covers 1 corrective lot. Can we amend it? If you, the supplier, and the insurer agree, we'd need a revised packing list, separate container allocation, and a written disposition for the rejected 6. How quickly? Best case, the 18 make tonight's gate. Then that's the recovery plan. Thomas looked at me and mouthed, Insurer. I'll contact them, I said. Owen's voice came onto the line. Before anyone commits Bell Row to split freight costs, I'd like finance included. He had been listening from Evelyn's side or had joined without announcing himself. Evelyn said, "You are included." "I mean included in the decision. The decision is whether 18 crates arrive late or 24 crates arrive later. We don't know that 6 crates are defective. 2 samples just broken the test your agreement requires. The samples may have been mishandled." Thomas leaned toward the phone. They were removed under terminal supervision. "Who is that?" Owen asked. "Thomas Vale." "Thomas, your team assured us the product was sound. My team did not have complete test results. You packed it." "Yes." The single word seemed to bother Owen. He preferred people who padded bad news with enough explanation to spread the blame around. Evelyn said, "I need the failed test report, the cooling records, and the release agreement in the next 30 minutes. "I'll send them," I said, "and I need to understand why the designated inspector's travel support was withdrawn while our replacement order was awaiting release." Owen spoke quickly. "That's an internal personnel matter unrelated to the product." It became related when the cargo stayed at the dock. "Mara's hotel and transportation have been restored." "After the terminal closed," I said. He ignored me. "She had full opportunity to complete the work yesterday." "With incomplete records?" Evelyn asked. "We were told the records were available." Thomas shook his head. Evelyn's voice cooled. "Send me your recovery plan by 9 Eastern. Include the name of the person with authority to release each portion." Owen said, "We'll do that." The question was for Mara. The laboratory ventilation system hummed above us. "I'm still the immediate release authority under the corrective agreement," I said. "Laboratorio Costa remains the alternate after independent verification. Are you able and willing to complete the inspection?" Owen said my name in warning. "Yes," I told her. "Good, send the documents." She disconnected. Owen stayed on the line. "Everyone except Mara, leave," he said. Beatrice looked around her own laboratory. Luis picked up his clipboard. "They're not your employees," I said. "I need a private conversation." Tomas motioned toward the hall. He and Luis left with Beatrice, who carried the broken samples to a locked evidence cabinet. The laboratory door clicked shut. Owen said, "You contradicted me in front of the client. You lied to the client about the shipment." "I communicated the expected shipping status based on information available at the time. You said it had cleared quality and was waiting on customs. I said customs was delaying the departure scan. Customs can't scan cargo they never received. That distinction does nothing to protect us. It protects customs. You think this is funny? I think it's accurate." His chair scraped. "You copied a client on a personnel dispute. You challenged executive authority in front of a supplier. Now you're proposing extra freight that could erase the margin on this order. The 6 crates failed. 2 saucers failed. That's why we use samples. You are treating your preferred process as if it were physical law. It's the process Caldera required after our plates cracked in their restaurants. Our supplier's plates. Our stamp is on the bottom." He went quiet. That was the part Owen understood. He had negotiated Caldera's contract himself, including the clause that put Belle Rowe's name on every warranty claim. "We need to contain this," he said. "Then approve the split." "I will approve the split if you sign a statement that yesterday's delay resulted from unavailable supplier records with no reference to your expenses or transportation. The records were unavailable. So was the ride you canceled." "Mara, you want me to make your action disappear from the timeline. I want a client-facing document that addresses product, not an internal disagreement." Evelyn asked why I couldn't finish the inspection. "You could have finished it." "With what records?" "You could have waited." "I did wait. Then the bay closed." "You could have found a taxi." "I did, after you canceled the car." His breathing became audible. When Owen was 26, before the tailored suits and the measured voice, he'd worked one summer in our Ohio distribution center. A shelving unit tipped while he was counting inventory. He braced it with his shoulder until 2 warehouse employees pulled a pallet jack clear. Celia told that story whenever anyone accused him of caring only about spreadsheets. He could carry weight. He simply needed to choose where to set it down. "I'm sending you a formal directive," he said. "You will complete the inspection, release conforming product, and return immediately. All external communication goes through finance. Quality findings go through quality. You report to the executive team. I report accurately to everyone named in the agreement. You're forcing me to address this as insubordination. Then spell my name right." He disconnected. I sent Evelyn the test report, cooling records, chain of custody forms, and agreement. I copied Gerald, Celia, Owen, Thomas, Luis, and the supplier's insurer. I left my travel arrangements out of that email because the product documents stood on their own. By the time I stepped into the hall, Thomas had obtained preliminary approval from the insurer to divide the lot. The formal amendment would take 2 hours. The shipping line could provide a smaller container for the 18 crates if Bell Rowe paid the change fee by noon. Owen denied the payment request at 11:14. Reason: pending executive review of employee conduct and product disposition. Thomas read the notice over my shoulder. "He is holding the good crates because you held the bad ones." He'd call that an oversimplification. "What do you call it?" Saturday. We took his car back to the terminal. Luis opened the inspection bay for the 18 documented crates. I checked the remaining test saucers under ultraviolet light, reviewed the complete records against the crate labels, and verified pallet moisture. By 1:30, the physical inspection was finished. The amendment had arrived, signed by Caldera and the insurer. The supplier's owner signed after an argument with Thomas in the loading office loud enough to make Luis close the door. Only Bell Rowe's split freight authorization was missing. I sat on an overturned pallet near the bay and ate the almond cookies I had bought for Celia. They were dry and tasted faintly of the paper bag. Priya called from her apartment. "He locked me out of Q-Track," I said. "He locked both of us out." "Why you?" "I exported the activity log. That's part of your job." "He says I distributed privileged executive communication." "To whom?" "To Gerald." "Who is the controller?" "What did Gerald say?" "That I should save everything to the audit archive." I smiled despite myself. Gerald's rebellion sounded exactly like good records management. Priya lowered her voice. Owen changed the verbal approval entry. To what? Release requested following director's unreasonable delay. Can he overwrite the original? The audit history keeps both. He knew that. He was creating a second interpretation, not erasing the first. He's good, I said. At this? At making a file look like two people were standing in different weather. Priya was quiet. Are you coming back? I don't know. If you leave, he'll say you abandoned the launch. If I stay, he'll say I refused a return instruction. Yes, that's the shape of it. I brushed cookie crumbs from my pants. Across the bay, the 18 approved crates stood in 3 rows. The 6 rejected ones had been moved behind a yellow barrier. Save the audit history, I said. I already did. At 2, Caldera sent a formal notice reserving its right to charge Bell Rowe for launch delays. Evelyn added a separate requirement. Mara Bell would retain direct quality authority over all corrective shipments for the rest of the rollout. Owen called Celia within minutes. Celia called me immediately afterward. He says the client is dictating our org chart now. The client is dictating who signs this corrective order. He says you encourage them. I answered Evelyn's questions. He also says you've refused his communication protocol. I'm not sending quality findings through the person who misrepresented shipping status. A forklift rolled between the approved crates and the bay door, then stopped. Its driver waited for an authorization number that still had not arrived. Celia said, "If I approve the split freight, will you seal the 18 and come home?" "I'll seal them when the carrier confirms the booking." And then? "I need the 6 remade. I need Caldera's corrective plan. I need my expenses reimbursed. And I need a reporting structure where Owen cannot cancel a quality inspection because he's angry with me. You're negotiating with me while our shipment sits on a dock. I'm answering the question you should have asked before you sent Owen to discipline me through an expense card." Her voice thinned. "I have protected your place in this company for years." The terminal seemed to grow louder around me. My place, you know what I mean. I don't think I do. After your father died, there were people who thought you were too close to the operation and too emotional about suppliers. I backed you. I built the Supplier program, and I gave you room to build it. There it was, every late flight, every factory floor, every cracked sample reduced to room someone in the family had allowed me to occupy. I looked at the brass pliers on top of my inspection case. I'm not signing defective porcelain to repay you, I said. I never asked you to. You asked me to protect Owen from the timeline. I asked you to protect Belle Rowe. You keep saying those names like they belong to different people depending on who made the mistake. Celia's breath caught. For a moment, I wanted to take it back. I wanted her kitchen, her matchbooks, her compact beside the tire gauge. I wanted to be the niece who could absorb one more ugly decision and come home for dinner. The forklift idled. Celia said, "What exactly do you want, Mara?" I rested one hand on the closed inspection case. "For you to decide whether my judgment matters before it becomes expensive," I said. "Not after." Celia stayed silent long enough for the forklift driver to switch off his engine. Then she said, "Give me 15 minutes. "For what?" "To decide before it gets more expensive." She hung up. Thomas came through the bay door carrying 2 bottles of water. He handed me one and studied my face. "Family?" he asked. "Management?" "In a family company, this is the same illness with 2 names. Please don't become insightful. I'm tired." He sat on the pallet beside me. For several minutes, we watched Luis rearrange paperwork that was already in order. "What will happen to Owen?" Thomas asked. "I don't know. But you hope something." "I hope he has to explain himself to someone he can't strand at a terminal." At 14 minutes, my phone rang. Gerald was calling from the conference room. Celia spoke when I answered. "I approved the change fee. The number should transmit within 5 minutes." "Thank you." "The carrier says the smaller container can be loaded tonight, but it won't be placed on the vessel until tomorrow morning. I'll verify the crates remain secured overnight." "Owen is here." I waited. He said, "The approval is conditional on a complete release package and a final count witnessed by the terminal." That's standard. I'm stating it for the record. Then the record feels reassured. Celia cut in. "Enough." It was the first time I had heard her use that tone with him. Owen must have heard it too, because he became brisk and useful. He'd already negotiated the carrier's change fee down by 11%. He had arranged credit for the unused space in the original container and secured priority handling at Newark. If the 18 crates sailed in the morning, they could reach Caldera's training kitchens 1 day late instead of 3. That was the maddening thing about Owen. Even while standing inside the damage he had caused, he could calculate the cleanest route out. "The 6 rejected crates will be remade at the supplier's expense," he said. Thomas leaned toward my phone. "We will cover production, not expedited freight." "Your process failed. Your instruction caused the process failure." Owen's voice flattened. "My instruction was based on your assurance that visual inspection had passed. And my assurance was based on the understanding that we would complete cooling. You chose to interpret an acceleration request as permission to violate your own procedure." Tomas's face reddened. I said, "Save it for the corrective review. Right now, we need a signed disposition." "We need accountability," Owen said. "We needed it before you told them to pack hot porcelain." Celia said, "The supplier covers replacement production. Belle Rowe covers the expedited freight. We'll allocate responsibility after the review." Owen started to object. She spoke over him. "Send the disposition." The authorization number appeared in Luis's system 3 minutes later. We inspected every approved crate again as it moved toward the smaller container. Luis read each number aloud. Thomas checked it against the revised packing list. I crimped an aluminum seal through each latch and photographed it beside the cobalt blue test saucer assigned to that crate. By the 12th crate, the muscles between my thumb and wrist had begun to ache. The brass pliers were heavier than modern seal tools. My father had refused to replace them because he claimed weight discouraged careless work. At the 18th, the overhead lights flickered. Luis looked at the clock. Carrier secures the container now. Final seal at crane placement tomorrow. So the shipment stays here overnight. Yes. Owen had canceled my card at 4:22 Friday afternoon. By Saturday evening, the cargo was still docked, and Caldera had a written record showing exactly why. I locked the pliers and unused seals in my inspection case. The 6 rejected crates stood behind the yellow barrier, separate from the approved cargo. Hotel? Thomas asked. Finance booked it. Car? Also booked. He smiled. You have become very luxurious. I may order the breakfast upgrade. At 5:30 Sunday morning, the terminal floodlights turned the dock white. The rain had cleared, leaving the air cold and metallic. A crane lifted the smaller container onto a trailer that would take it to the vessel. Evelyn joined by video from her kitchen in Connecticut. She wore a gray sweatshirt and held a mug with both hands. Owen, Celia, Gerald, and Priya appeared in separate squares beneath her. Louis checked the container number. Thomas confirmed the revised count. I signed the release certificate and fitted the final aluminum seal through the container latch. Before I closed the pliers, Evelyn said, Mara, confirm for everyone who held release authority from the time the corrective agreement was signed. I did, with Laboratorio Costa as the independent alternate after full verification. And were you available Friday afternoon? Yes. Were the required records available? No. Was your company transportation available? Owen shifted in his video square. No, I said. It had been canceled. Evelyn looked directly into her camera. Then Caldera's position is that Belle Rose CFO interfered with the designated release authority during an urgent corrective shipment and misreported the resulting hold as a customs delay. Our delay notice will reflect that. Owen said, We disagree with that characterization. I expected you would. We recovered the shipment within the available carrier window. Mara recovered 18 crates. 6 failed. The replacement process is underway. Good. Then we can discuss the penalty after all 6 replacements pass her inspection. She asked me to seal the container. The brass handles met with a hard click. When I opened them, the number was pressed deep into the aluminum. Luis recorded it. The crane operator raised one gloved hand, and the container began moving toward the vessel. Owen left the call before it reached the loading lane. I flew home that evening in the same clothes I had worn on Friday. Finance had reissued the ticket, though my corporate card remained canceled. Celia's almond cookies were gone. In their place, my inspection case held signed originals, 2 unused seals, and 18 photographs of blue saucers beside locked crates. Gerald met me at the Newark warehouse Monday morning. You look terrible, he said. You look like you slept in a copier. I may have. He carried a banker's box into the quality office and closed the door. Inside were printed Q-Track histories, expense control records, supplier payment schedules, and the acquisition projections Owen had prepared for the lenders. Celia authorized an operational review, he said. Of me? All of it. I set my inspection case on the desk. What changed? Caldera's notice reached the lender. That was fast. They monitor material client disputes. Owen knew that. Then why lie about customs? He thought the cargo would clear before Caldera checked. It might have. If I had signed without the logs, if Priya had accepted the verbal approval, if Thomas had kept the controller histories in his box, Owen's version would have become the only version before anyone knew the porcelain could crack. Gerald opened the banker's box. The review includes his authority changes, the supplier delays, the Armitage assumptions, and your handling of the shipment. So he gets to audit me while I audit him. He objected to the wording too. Maybe we're healing. Gerald almost smiled. Celia placed me on paid administrative leave for the review. Owen wanted it unpaid. Gerald documented that disagreement in the same careful language he used for everything else. The leave lasted 9 days. I spent the first 3 repairing the porch railing at Celia's house. We lived in separate halves of an old converted farmhouse, close enough that she could knock on the kitchen wall when her heat stopped working. She did not knock. She left before breakfast and came home after I turned off my lights. On the 4th day, I received the expense reimbursement. It included the hotel, taxis, sandwich, coffee, and €19 terminal purchase. I returned the cost of the almond cookies with a note, consumed during carrier delay. Gerald called to tell me accounts payable had framed the note. The review found that Owen had improved Belle Rowe's cash position on paper by stretching supplier payments and postponing costs tied to quality corrections. The practice was legal and visible in the ledgers. Its operational consequences had been scattered across departments: delayed samples in quality, stopped work at suppliers, emergency freight in logistics, irritated clients in sales. Owen's Armitage projections assumed those delays could continue while a second company was integrated. They couldn't. The Q-Track history showed his original verbal release entry, his later revision, Priya's request for the approving director, and my hold notice. The terminal records showed the inspection bay closing. The transport company showed exactly when he canceled the car. My email established that I remained available. He had built 2 versions of the weather. The timestamps showed which one got wet. Celia withdrew Belle Rowe from the Armitage acquisition before the lenders could reject the financing. Owen called it panic. The outside reviewer called it a correction based on costs the initial model had excluded. Caldera charged us for part of the delay, then waived the remainder when we agreed to direct quality oversight for the rest of the rollout. Tomas's factory remade the 6 crates. He sent daily cooling logs without being asked and included a photograph of each kiln door after sealing it. The restaurants opened in stages. For one training dinner in Baltimore, Caldera used rented plates. Evelyn sent me a picture of a chef holding one up with an expression of personal betrayal. Owen lost authority over quality releases, travel decisions tied to inspections, and supplier payment exceptions. Celia required Gerald's countersignature on commitments associated with the acquisition plan he had championed. He remained CFO for 6 more weeks. On his last afternoon, he came to my office carrying the brass seal pliers. I had left them in the executive conference room after the review interview. He placed them on my desk. "You won," he said. The words sounded tired rather than bitter. "I got 18 crates onto a ship." "You got Celia to choose you." "That's what you think happened?" "I think you made an operational disagreement personal and put the company in a position where she had to remove me. You canceled my card to force my signature. I canceled spending after you ignored a return instruction. You're still doing it." "Doing what?" "Building a sentence where the part you chose becomes weather." He looked at the pliers, at my father's initials scratched beneath the handle. "I was trying to keep us financeable," he said. "You know the margins. You know what one bad quarter does." "I do. Every department thinks its exception is sacred. And every spreadsheet thinks time is free." His mouth moved as if he might smile. Then he nodded once and left. He resigned that Friday. Celia accepted before he could change his mind. She offered me the new position in her kitchen, between a leaking faucet and a bowl of peaches going soft on the counter. Director of Operational Integrity was a terrible title, so I crossed it out and wrote Vice President of Supplier Operations and Quality. The reporting line went directly to Celia with written independence for product holds, required client disclosures, and travel authorization attached to active inspections. Gerald reviewed the expense language. Priya received authority to preserve audit records without executive approval. "My deferred profit sharing stays intact," I said. Celia stirred her tea. "It was never at risk. Owen proposed suspending it. I rejected that. You didn't tell me. I'm telling you now." I slid the document back. "I need 2 days. You're negotiating again." "I'm reading." She looked toward the kitchen wall that separated our halves of the house. "I should not have said I protected your place," she said. "No. I thought I had. That was the problem. She nodded. The apology remained imperfect, which made it usable. I signed 2 days later. When the replacement crates arrived, Thomas included a cobalt blue test saucer wrapped separately in brown paper. A shallow, pale mark crossed its rim where he had tested the new glaze against the edge of the seal tool. I kept it on my desk beside the brass pliers. Celia stopped there one evening after everyone else had gone. She ran her thumb over the mark, then set her coffee cup in the center of the saucer. "It held," she said. I looked at the uncracked glaze beneath her cup. "Yes," I said, "it did."